guys? What's up? Alpha Lion Simba here, and welcome to another episode of Magnificent and Mythological. I'd recently gotten a request from my good friend Johnny Gallagher to talk about Gremlins. Okay, Johnny, this one's for you. So, let's begin. The word gremlin probably came from the Irish word Gremlin, which means bad-tempered little fellow. However, according to Paul Quinion, it is possible that the term is a blend of the word goblin with the name of the manufacturer of the most common beer available in the RAF in the 1920s, Fremlin. The myth of gremlins came from pilots in the British Royal Air Force during the World Wars. When something would go wrong with their planes that they couldn't figure out what happened, they blamed invisible creatures they called gremlins. The pilots would inspect the engines on their planes and find that the wires or other small parts had been frayed, leading to the theory that gremlins chewed on the mechanical devices, when in reality, rats were most likely the culprits. At one point, gremlins were thought to have enemy sympathies, but investigations revealed that enemy aircraft had similar and equally inexplicable mechanical problems, and as such, gremlins were portrayed as equal opportunity tricksters, taking no sides in the conflict, but acting out their mischief for their own self-interest, when in reality, the gremlins were a form of buck passing, or deflecting blame. The concept of gremlins as a scapegoat was important to the morale of pilots, according to the author and historian Marlon Bresci. His words were, and I quote, "Gremlins, while imaginary, played a very important role to the airmen of the Royal Air Force. Gremlin tales have helped build morale among the pilots, which, in turn, helped them repel the Luftwaffe invasion during the Battle of Britain during the summer of 1940. The war may have had a different outcome if the RAF pilots had lost their morale and allowed Germany's plans for Operation Sea Lion to develop. In a way, it could be argued that gremlins, troublesome as they were, ultimately helped the Allies win the war." Bresci also noted, "Morale among the RAF pilots would have suffered if they pointed the finger of blame at each other. It was far better to make the scapegoat a fantastic and comical creature than another member of your own squadron." One man in particular who made the idea of gremlins popular was the legendary British author Roald Dahl. He was responsible for getting gremlins known outside of the Royal Air Force. He would have been familiar with the myth, having carried out his military service in 80 Squadron of the Royal Air Force in the Middle East. Dahl had his own experience in an accidental crash landing in the Western Desert when he ran out of fuel. In January of 1942, he was transferred to Washington, D.C. as assistant air attaché at the British Embassy. It was there that he wrote his first children's novel, The Gremlins, in which gremlins were tiny men who lived on RAF fighters. In the same novel, Dahl called the wives of gremlins Fifinellas, and their male children Widgets, and their female children Flibbertigibbets. Dahl showed the finished manuscript to Sidney Bernstein, the head of the British Information Service, who came up with the idea to send it to Walt Disney, and production did begin on a Disney production of The Gremlins, but it never came into full fruition. While Roald Dahl was famous for making gremlins known worldwide, many returning air servicemen swear that they saw the creatures tinkering with their equipment. Sometime later, Roald Dahl wrote yet another book involving gremlins called Sometime Never. Here's the difference between his two books. In Sometime Never, the Gremlins lived in one forest in England before the Industrial Revolution, then moved underground. They ate snozberries, were ruled by one leader, thus making a human-like society, and their intelligence was fully comparable to a human, and they read human books. In The Gremlins, they formerly lived in the Prima Forest and swamps of England, later in the Hangars. They ate postage stamps. Their social structure was uncertain, rivalry between gremlins of different habitats, with no established families, and their intelligence was comparable to a children, with no clear culture of their own. In most modern depictions, gremlins are almost always pictured with big ears. Since they would have to stay out of sight, they'd listen closely to everything people do and say so that they know exactly how best to interfere. Some stories claim that gremlins specialized in car parts and they've messed with a car's brakes or gas tank, causing car accidents. And since computers have become a huge part of life, it's said that some gremlins have devoted themselves to causing computer crashes and spreading destructive viruses. In fact, the superstition of gremlins has become so popular that its popularity peaked in the release of the 1984 movie Gremlins. Well, that was it. My magnificent and mythological episode on Gremlins. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, leave requests in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Alpha Lion Simba,